Hello, and welcome to Starkillr Base Podcast. I'm Selina Starkillr, the host of Starkillr Base, and joining me today is my very first interviewee and friend from Abundance Group, Nivi Canela. Welcome, Nivi.
Hello. Thank you for
Yeah.
having me.
Thank you for being here. So, Nivi Canela is a burlesque artist, singer, and creator of Nak3d Broadway who currently resides in New Orleans. There it is. She is Broadway's Bridge and Tunnel baby, and we're so excited to learn more about you today. So, thank you again for being here, and we'll get started right away with the questions. So, Nivi, how did you get started in burlesque?
Well, I went to a showcase for International Women's Day and I saw this burlesque performer. Unfortunately, I don't remember their name. Um, but they did like a classic, glove peel, strip tease. They had the corset and I was like, "Oh my God. Like this is so cool." And I knew that I really, really wanted to do it. And a while later, like a year, I think it was a few months later, I got a chance to enroll in Joe Weldon's Essential Burlesque series at the New York School of Burlesque. And that's where I did my debut.
Yay! I love the
Yeah,
New York School of Burlesque. That's
I
also
do
where I
too.
learned my essentials once I actually took class. So we're
Oh,
both like
awesome.
former college
Yeah.
classmates, not
Yes, we
college
are.
mates. Yes, and how did that first performance go for you?
Um, well, I was telling you before, I blacked out. I was really, really nervous, and it's wild because like I already had like a lot of performance experience. I was already like working professionally in theater and like, film, and there was just something about doing that burlesque act up there by myself that I got so nervous I blacked out. But it was, I watch the videos now and I'm like, "Oh my God, like I look like I know what I'm doing." Like I look good, you know? So that's what I remember is being really excited, being really encouraged and being surrounded by a couple of veteran performers and a lot of newbies, which was really comforting because all kind of going through it together. And then getting off the stage and seeing Joe there, like, calm. She's always super zen and like calm and just like, "Hey, how'd it go?" And just seeing like all these like other faces, like, "You did it!" You kind of see things in slow motion.
Yeah.
That's how I remember it.
That's so great. I totally feel the like blacking out once you're on stage. Once that adrenaline's
Yeah.
going, sometimes you're just like, oh, it's over, and I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I'm really thankful my friends were there to record it because otherwise I would have no idea what was going on there and my brain would probably make up some story about how I did a terrible job, but I have no excuse because I have the video and I'm like, "Yes, you did it!"
Celebrate with the champagne.
Yes.
That's so awesome. And you did that while you were living in New York, or had you already moved to New Orleans?
No, I was living in New York.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not too far of a trek either.
Not at all. It was back in, I believe it was 2018.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before the big P hit everything.
Before the big P, and that's when I moved. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy trying to move through a world global thing happening.
It was wild. It was wild. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're settled and not, not in transit or we're
No.
not in the middle of a global thing anymore.
Yeah. I mean, people are still getting sick, but it's not like peak like it was back then.
Yeah, very much so. Very much
Yeah.
so. Let's see here. How did you choose your persona, if you have a persona, and or your stage name if you're using a stage name?
I would not say that I have a persona. It's really just me up there. Usually it's um my goofiest side. That's the side that I really like to bring to the stage because I don't really get to uh do that as much in everyday life. I feel like it's considered, you know, socially inappropriate. um, but my stage name has gone through a few different evolutions. So I actually went by Nivian Storm at first,
Ooh.
and it was so The Mists of Avalon, I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's one of my favorite books, and it's about it's like the Arthurian legend, so King Arthur's story,
Mm.
but told from the perspective of like the women in the situation. So you have like
Oh, that's cool.
Guinevere and like Morgana and all the priestesses and stuff. And there are two priestesses, Nimue and Vivian. And I just took the beginnings of their names and I put them together. And if anybody's like really familiar with Arthurian lore, they're both kind of credited for locking Merlin, who was supposedly like the most powerful wizard ever, in a tree for like however many years, depending on which version you're reading.
What?
Yeah, they're kind of badasses. So I
That's
took
awesome.
and that's where Nivian came from. And
Mhm.
then Storm was always like, I've never been a big comic book person, but I did grow up watching X-Men. Storm was like one of the only melanated women like cartoons on the screen, and so I guess I just gravitated toward her and wanted that like power to be in my name. And at some point, I think I wanted to kind of bring more of my roots into it. And so from Storm, I changed it to Tormenta. So it was Nivi Tormenta, which just means storm in Spanish. And then kind of during lockdown, I was like, I think I needed more integration. I needed to feel more like I could be this person that I am in the burlesque world and also bring that out into the world. I was a teaching artist, and so that felt virtually impossible. It was like I want my name here and another, I had my branding for my professional acting career that was all under my government name, and then I had my burlesque stuff kind of on the side, and I just needed to bring it all together in order to feel less burnt out and feel like, I was concentrating my energy all into one place instead of, throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
And so that's where I brought in Canela, which is actually my grandmother's maiden name.
Oh.
And it happens to mean cinnamon.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
And I've since met a lot of people whose names like mean cinnamon or are cinnamon in the burlesque world. So I'm like, this is very cool. It's like we're all this one little family.
Oh, yeah. The cinnamon stick dam. That's really cool. I also used to watch the X-Men cartoon growing up, and that it was just so good. I definitely think Wolverine was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And Gambit too, because he like kind of showed up rarely, but when he
Hmm.
did, he was on it.
I loved Rogue and I loved Storm. And I
Yeah.
loved that one thing that I always thought was so interesting was that you wouldn't see Storm in every episode, but they
Yeah.
would call on her like when they needed somebody to just save the day. This is how I remember it. It was like, oh, shit has hit the fan. Can we curse? Is that okay?
Oh yeah.
Shit has hit the fan. We don't know what to do. Somebody call Storm, and she would just come and fix it in like 5 minutes. And I'm like, well, this is why she can't be in the show, because they would have no problems.
She's too good at
She's
solving everything.
too good.
She's probably busy helping other people. That's why they can't find her all the time.
I like to imagine that she's just like sipping martinis in this big like BoJack Horseman style mansion in LA. I don't know why.
Yes.
She's just like, oh, they're calling again. Somebody get my suit.
Yeah. Garcon. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That'd be great. She just like rides in on a gust of wind or something, on a
Hmm.
storm cloud, and through the atrium into her lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could totally envision that. I love that. That's got to be like a nerdlesque number or
Oh my
something.
gosh, that would be really cute.
Yeah, like a high class storm. Yeah.
She's got that gown version, that version she had with the cape. Oh,
So many good outfits. So many good outfits, so many good characters. But you're right. Storm, I don't know how it is these days. Hopefully, there are more diverse characters so that everyone can feel like they see someone that they could align with. I definitely think that's important. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Yeah. Let's see here. What other questions do I have for you? Oh, so you are also a guitarist and you sing. Are there any other instruments you play besides guitar?
I play a little piano.
Oh, so she's a
Yeah.
multi-instrumentalist.
I like to say I don't consider myself a guitarist or a pianist. I just know how to accompany myself. And I think the
Ooh.
difference is that if somebody were to ask me to sit down and, play some chords for them, I can do that. But if you were to ask me to sit down and play you like a concerto, I would not know like what I was doing. But yeah, I learned really just to accompany myself.
Mm,
Yeah.
very cool. So you can make more music and things like that without bothering other people and having it done your own way, or
Well, I think that's a really good question because I did kind of start tinkering on this like toy piano when I was little. I
Mm,
just started gradually like upgrading as I got older. So I was always interested in instruments and music and piano, and I think it felt safer to me at home than like singing, where people could hear me. I grew up in a one-bedroom apartment with my mom and my sister, and then my cousins were obnoxious and were across the hall, so they could always like, run in at any time. Um, so I think playing this little toy piano was kind of a safe way for me to express that. And then as I got older and got more opportunities to sing, there were usually there was backing tracks or somebody accompanying me, so I didn't have to. And I started playing guitar kind of more seriously in high school. Um, there was a teacher, he was kind of a creep, but there was a teacher who would like just give the kids free lessons after school. Um, and then kind of played on and off in private in college when I had a little bit of extra time. I After I graduated from college, I think I pretty much left my guitar behind at home when I moved to Miami. Um, but when I moved back to Jersey, there was this open mic at this place called Maxwell's in Hoboken, and they'd have this weekly open mic, and so I was like, I gotta, I had to gather like every ounce of courage because I've learned to be confident as a singer. Kind of learned to overcome stage fright and feel this kind of mastery where I know that if somebody were to ask me to show up and just warm up and do it, I could do it. But I don't feel that way about instruments at all. Like I have to
yeah.
practice a lot. Um, and so that was where I kind of first started bringing in my guitar and playing correct stuff. And I did it for a while, like a few months. And again, went back into acting, went back into like the theater and the stage, and didn't have to do that because there was always, again, either somebody playing
Mm,
or there was backing tracks. And when I moved down here, kind of 2021, there wasn't much theater happening. There was burlesque happening, but I wanted to be able to show up and sing the songs that I love and sing some of my original songs. And I wanted to be able to do that without relying on anyone
mm,
because I didn't know anybody.
yeah.
And even when you do, sometimes like people get sick or people just can't make it. And I never wanted to have to like cancel because of that. And so I kind of pushed myself to just learn how to do it myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. Like what other person is just like, you know what? I'm gonna learn how to do it because I need to. That's so amazing. I love too that you mentioned that you learned solely to accompany yourself because you can't always trust people. Of course, we love other people. My late uncle, who was a multi instrumentalist, also played alone, and he would like buy cassettes where the lyrics are taken out, so it's just a backing track, and then play his saxophone or his ukulele. Mostly it was, yeah, he
Oh,
played every type of saxophone, soprano, alto, baritone,
yeah.
everything. And he would just bring his little tape recorder and set it down and push play and then start playing. And that was his whole life. He lived for that.
That's
So
awesome. That's like a little band that you just carry with you.
yeah, that's an idea for you too. If you ever don't want to bring the guitar, just pop in a little, make
I
a
would
little
love to
recording
get
at
a
home.
cassette actually. Like
Right.
I do have like digital tracks that I have on, Google Drive, and I can play them whenever. I don't like how they sound as much as, like uh the actual instrument.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm learning to get better at making them so that I can make them
Mm.
sound how I want to make them sound instead of getting like the karaoke track from like online.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I love the saxophone. That's like one of my favorite instruments to hear. And like living in New Orleans where you can, stumble into a bar and there's just like live jazz playing. Oh my goodness. Ugh.
Oh, so divine.
I do. I feel so glad I get my red wine and I just listen. And they're usually singing about something really raunchy too. They're like, "Ain't nobody gonna touch my jelly roll, jelly roll." I'm like,
And you're like, yes, yes, keep a hand up
"Yes, play
them.
it again."
Yeah. That's so fantastic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's the picture I have when people say like, "Oh, I'm going to New Orleans." It's like Mardi Gras and jazz in a like small place. I've never been there
Yes.
myself, but I'd love to go.
Oh,
So when
let
I
me
do
know if
go,
you
we'll
do.
have to meet up. Hopefully I'll relearn the saxophone in between and we could like play together.
So you also did you learn from your uncle?
I didn't get to learn from him, but I was interested in learning the saxophone
Mhm.
from him, but also I saw some lady on TV who was playing the saxophone and she was just like rocking it and being awesome. But she also had two dancers with her that had
Mm.
like ponytails right on the top of their heads and they were miles long and they were just doing like the helicopter like the whole time. It's like woo woo, and I was like, "What is this? I want this. I want hair down
Uh-huh.
to my butt, and I want to play the saxophone."
Yes.
Yeah. So luckily, my uncle came over and he like brought his sax and showed me and helped me like play my first note on it. But then he
Oh.
recommended that I start with piano because I was so young. He's like,
Yeah.
this will be a great way to learn how to read music. And, it's not in a specific key. It's not like a soprano, it's a piano. So you can,
Yeah.
play in all different keys. So that's how I learned. I learned from piano first and then with his encouragement, went to alto. I played alto and baritone in high school, and then I switched over to drums. So I, dabbled in
Very
everything that I
cool.
could.
You are a
But
multi-instrumentalist.
used to be. Yeah, it used
Ooh.
to be.
I've always found that like it's not that hard to pick it up again.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
riding a bike. Um,
Yeah.
it's been a long time since I've played saxophone, like over, oh God, it's like been 20 years. Oh, that's hard to
Wow.
say. Yeah.
That would be a really cool act though. Like I see you in like the classic 80s like workout getup with the
Yeah.
wristbands and the high pony, like a long blonde pony to the floor, and you just like you come out and like let's get physical on the saxophone and then just like take a break and swing the hair around. Cut this out if you plan on using it, so it's a
Nobody
surprise.
can have this idea. Yeah.
That'd
That's
be really
great.
cool.
That's a good idea. I'll write that down afterwards and be like, all right, let me put those little nuggets of my childhood into the art that I put out on stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still have my alto saxophone, so my plan is to kind of slowly learn it again. And when I do, I definitely want to bring it on stage, but we should definitely get together and jam out.
Yes.
That'd be so much fun. And speaking of music, when did you decide to add music into your burlesque acts or your own music into your burlesque acts?
Oh, do you mean like originals or just singing in general?
Uh, both originals and singing. I want to know it all, Nivi.
I was born in Jersey City Medical Center. It is now a condo. Um, Let me see. So very shortly after I did my showcase, because I was already hooked, I did
Yeah.
my first showcase. I believe it was that same year that I went to the New York Burlesque Festival. And have you ever heard of Kiki La Chanteuse?
I feel like I've heard the name before, but I'm not familiar with their work. Yeah.
So, you might know her as the noir pageant princess. Like I forget the year, but the second year that they did, no, the first year they did the noir pageant, I believe she was like the first noir pageant princess. Um,
Gotcha.
and so in 2018, she did this act at the New York Burlesque Festival to House of the Rising Sun,
Oh.
and it was a sing and strip act.
Oh.
And I remember it like it was literally last night. It was like this purple, gold, and green kind of Mardi Gras colors outfit because she's Creole.
Oh,
Um,
awesome.
and she was singing and she was doing the splits and it was like she had this belt, this powerful belt. I was like, oh my gosh, like first of all, I don't think I had ever seen sing and strip represented on a stage. I think I maybe saw it as like a gimmick in an old movie or something, you know, but I was like, oh my God, people are doing this. And that it just like blew my mind. I was like, I can bring together these other things that I love and like I get to just pick whatever song and wear whatever costume I want and like and so being that I love musical theater, my second act was I submitted a pitch to a theater festival
Mhm.
and I said I want to do Out Tonight from Rent, but I want to do it as a cat. Because
Yes.
Mimi, much like Margaret in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, like there's all these comparisons to being a cat in Rent for Mimi. And I was like, these are two of my favorites. I think it would be so funny if I just like dressed up as a cat and it was like meow tonight, you know? That's what I decided to call it. So I did that, and then I think I did a nerdlesque number that wasn't singing, but beyond that, like every act after that was me singing. There was an act that was very heavily inspired by Kiki's act, which was my Desperado act, and that's where I imagine this character as like she's a madam in 1800s Storyville, which was like the red light district in New Orleans, and she, the song Desperado by the Eagles.
Oh,
It
so
was one of
good.
my favorite songs to sing. And I was like, I want to just take this and sing it like she's like, don't leave me. Like, I have fallen in
Oh,
love,
yeah.
and you're just a man who keeps coming and going as he pleases, like a coal miner or something who's like in
Yeah.
town for work. Like, I create this entire backstory. Like, it's an entire musical in 4 minutes. So that's
I
my
love
11
that.
o'clock number is Desperado.
Yeah. That I'm like getting chills as you're describing it because I just
Oh,
imagine you like singing it so longingly. Like, oh, I can imagine it. I get the feels.
I appreciate
Yeah, I'd love
that.
to see it.
I'm
Yeah.
happy that you think of me that way.
Yeah. Do you feel that acting, your experience acting, helps you kind of flesh out your burlesque characters a little bit more?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, the tools that I use to interpret a song are actually acting tools. I do things like you asked, there's this famous book by Ada Hagen where she lists 6 questions that you have to answer about your character. And it's so simple, but it's so grounded. And I think a lot of the uncertainty that comes up when people are like fleshing out an act, there's all these gaps to fill in. But when I feel that rather than planning out every single moment, I would prefer to lay the groundwork of who this character is and like what the mood is, what the intention of the act is. And that way, if something amazing happens in the audience and I want to respond to it, I have the groundwork to be able to do that without like
Yeah.
off. Or if I do get thrown off for a second, I have the groundwork to be able to like integrate it into my act so I can be more improvisational because I know who this is, and I know. And that's also why I don't really say I have like one persona. It's just me showing up as either a character or like when I do fan dancing, it's just me being goofy. Like I guess I would say like my preferred when I fan dance, I like to show up as this kind of like um sugar baby femme fatale.
Yeah.
But that's as close to like a standard persona as I would get. The rest of it is just like it's character work.
Yeah. That's so helpful. And especially for you to have that lens, because then you're not thinking like, I need a persona, I need to just do one specific style. So that seems like it really helps give you a lot of freedom in your acts. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Everybody get some acting classes.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that improv has helped me a lot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your favorite gig memory?
Oh, I was thinking about this because you sent me the questions, and like the first thing that came to mind was a few years ago. I did this show. It was Shelley Watson's show at Sid Gold's Request Room in Times Square.
Oh,
And it's specifically for burlesque performers who sing. So the
oh,
first
cool.
act, we each sing a song, and then the second act, we come back and we do a burlesque number. Or in my case, I did my desperado number. I did a sing. I was like, "You're still gonna hear me sing,"
Yeah.
and I got to meet the main attraction in person because it was a very small cast. There were only like 3 or 4 of us besides the producer, Shelley.
Mm.
And so we were backstage at the end of the show, and Shelley was doing her like final song, and me and the main attraction are just sitting on a couch backstage, and like she's just sharing her wisdom with me. And she was telling me about this one woman show that she did, and I was like, oh my God, I really like, I want to do a one woman show, but I have this idea, but like, how do you motivate yourself to actually write it? And she gave me the best advice. She was like, first, you just submit to festivals, like submit your idea to festivals, and then once you have a deadline, you write the thing.
Mm.
And I ended up doing exactly that, and that's how I like wrote a one-woman show and like debuted it at a festival. So I owe her so much for that wisdom. And it really is like one of my favorite backstage memories was just like sitting there with a veteran performer and like getting to hear her advice.
Right. And just freely dispensing it to you, like, oh, take all the nuggets.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so like, like you could be starstruck, but when somebody is being so like, humble and generous, like that kind of wears off, and you realize you're just sitting next to like a person who has gone through the same kind of performance anxiety that you're you're going through right now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that story. That's a great story. And what is your favorite memory of a crowd interaction at a gig?
It was my first like public gig down here in New Orleans. I had done a private one already, but my first time getting out and like on a stage down here was Bayou Blues Burlesque, which is a weekly show where you have like a blues duo playing and singing. And because it's live music and because it's blues, it's very improvisational. So when I was preparing, again, I was just kind of like, I'm gonna hit these marks and I'm gonna try to make them line up to these parts of the song. But I knew that I had to be very flexible because, the band has a tendency to just add in a bunch of extra bars, and it's really fun not knowing like what's coming, they're so in one of those kind of improvisational moments, when I do fan dance in particular, and when I do kind of live burlesque, like burlesque to live music, I really focus on the audience. I just focus on like who can I make like who's giving me eye contact that feels welcoming right now that I can go like play with,
Yeah.
It's like I'm gonna go play. And so there were these 2 people in the audience at this little table in the corner, and I was doing I had like, my top had just I was wearing a halter dress. So I had undone the top, but I was kind of wearing my fan to cover me and like going around and like just like shaking in front of people and teasing. And there were these 2 people in the audience who were being so sweet and just screaming, and like I have really good gaydar, so I was like, these are queer people. I'm gonna go play with them. Like, so I went up and I kind of put I have this video of it on like I kind of put the fan like on the side to block everybody else's view and just leaned over and flashed the two of them. And they just started screaming and I started cracking up. So now I'm just there like, it was a lot of fun. And then later on, I remember I came back to their table and I had, everything off except like pasties and bottoms. And they just were like, and I went and I booped one of them on the nose. I was like, "Oh my God, you're so cute." And then they gave me money and I was like, "I don't know where I'm gonna put it, but thank you." Like, it's my favorite audience interaction moment ever.
Oh,
So sweet.
I love the boop on the nose. That's that's great.
I do just go and play with people.
Yeah, it's so rewarding to like go
Mhm.
out there and just have fun because they're already like I forgot which burlesque legend said it, but they arrived expecting to see at least a sparkly tit. So
Yeah.
they're ready to play at least a little bit, you know?
I think that would be a great name for a venue, the Sparkly Tit.
Oh, that
Wouldn't that
is
be
a great
great?
name. Yeah. I like that one. And then you have all different kinds of like themed drinks, obviously like a buttery nipple and then like,
Ooh.
that'd be
Yes.
so cool. All right. Well, when we open our place, everybody can come on down to the sparkly tit.
Come on down to the Sparkly Tit. We got the tassels. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a beaded curtain to get in or something.
Yeah.
The video of this interaction that you're telling us about, I think lives on your Instagram and your TikTok, right?
Yeah. I did put it
It's
up
so
on both.
good.
And it's always like everyone's favorite. It's like 7 seconds of just me leaning over with a fan.
I must have watched it like 20 times by this point,
Oh.
and it's so funny like every time. Is you just like lean, little lean, and then you just see you like lean back and laugh, and like
Yeah.
everybody's laughing and screaming. It's just like, oh, what an amazing time that must have been. So I'm glad to like hear about the backstory of it too, and not just see the shot from the audience. It's so cool. Oh, I love that video. What has the process of becoming a published writer been like for you?
Ooh. Oh. Um,
And tell
what
us
has the
about your
process
works
been
too.
like? So I guess I'll start with the intention. Um, I've literally always written poetry. And then, when we started doing creative writing in school, that was always something that I loved and gravitated toward. And I've tried to like save as many pieces as I could.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, writing has always been like, I have social anxiety, depression, and generalized anxiety. And so when I feel like I can't safely talk to anyone, that's where I go to my notes and I just like write down whatever is going through my mind, whatever I'm feeling. Um, and over the years, I have written like hundreds of poems and short stories and like little segments of essays that can be fleshed out. And so during lockdown, when my roommates went to quarantine elsewhere and I just had the whole place to myself. And I think it was like one of the first times in my life that like I had an apartment to myself and was quiet and I didn't have to, I was working from home, but like it's different than like having to go take a train and like go
Yeah.
somewhere. So I had a lot of time alone with my thoughts. And I started to go through all the songs and the poems and all these things I had written over the years and go, you know what? I think lockdown, a lot of us really had to deal with, we didn't know if we were going to get out of there alive. Like, so we had to
Yeah.
deal with like the idea of our own mortality. And I'm like, 29 thinking I might die in the next couple weeks. Like,
Yeah.
what would life be like, if I did, and what would I want to leave? And for
Mm.
me, it's like, I don't have a lot of money. Like, I don't have kids. I don't really want them.
Yep.
What I want to leave behind is my art because something that helped me as a queer person growing up was reading the works of queer, and the more personal they were, the better. If there were like journal
Mm.
pages from Tennessee Williams, it's like, I'm going to this museum and I'm going to read this journal page. I want to know, like, what was Frida Kahlo writing? Like, Sor Juana
Mm.
Inés, I don't think she was queer, but in my head, she like I headcanon her as queer. Like, she was very satisfied in that nunnery.
Yeah.
She was thriving. She was thriving, okay? So,
I love that.
yeah. So I started to, you know, that's where I was like, I'm gonna release my music. I need to make an album or two or three.
Yeah.
And I want to publish my own poetry and my own essays and fiction and stuff. And so there's this organization called the Dominican Writers Association. They're based in New York. They're a nonprofit, and they do everything from like writing classes to workshops on how to self-publish. You
Mm.
know, they have a lot of resources specifically for like the Dominican population of New York, which is huge.
Yeah.
And because of lockdown, they also kind of expanded their reach to people beyond New York. And so I was able to take a self-publishing class with them last year. So that was very informative. And I started submitting my work to them. And that's where I got my first do I have it here? I don't think I do. That's where I got my first essay published about my grandmother, which um was wild. It's like, oh, it just felt like something bigger than me because it was about her, and it was very much like me wanting to honor her memory and speak to her. Um and then I most recently had another essay published, which was like even more personal. And that was about like growing up with a mother who is mentally ill
Mm.
and struggled with substance abuse. And they have another collection coming that's specifically like queer Dominican writers. And so I have a few pieces coming out there. And my idea was just kind of like, let me, let me expand my reach
Mm.
through these publications and connect with other writers of color, and eventually release my own personal kind of anthology with some of these pieces and some other ones that I haven't shared yet. And so I'm gonna be
Mm.
releasing like the pre-sale form for that in a few weeks.
Ooh,
I know. Like
congrats!
once I'm done with this chapter of Naked Broadway, that's what's next, is actually,
Yeah.
like taking the next step there. It's wild to me. I'm like, ah.
Right, it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that like, because I made the promise in 2021 and I like literally started my mailing list being like, okay, y'all, here's what's coming. I'm working on this and this and this. It was like Naked Broadway and the book and the album. And so people keep going like, okay, well, you released a single and you're doing a lot of Naked Broadway stuff. Like,
Yeah.
where's this poetry collection? So I just have to like be patient with myself and know that, it happens when it's supposed to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all your stories and your personal poetry and these personal words that you wrote to yourself with everyone. Because you're right, it can really touch someone and make a difference because it's so personal to you. So thank you for sharing your awesome art with us. Yes, of course. I know you're always up to so much. It's like we gotta have Nivi on here because she's got so much going on and so many interesting things too. Making music, doing workshops, making books, performing, providing an entire platform for a community that's underserved with Naked Broadway. How did you decide to come up with Naked Broadway and decide to run with it?
The name Naked Broadway just came from, I was setting up my gig salad, as you know, was a homework assignment in our mentoring group.
Yep.
So I was setting up my gig salad, and I remember one of the pieces of advice that Pearl shared with us was like, use your name on the platform as an opportunity to showcase like what specific thing it is that you're doing. And I was like, all right, well, I'm doing sing and strip, mostly to musical theater numbers, and it was also very aspirational. Like,
Yeah.
who do I want to book? And it's people who love musical theater. And so I was like, it's kind of Broadway, but it's like I'm getting naked, and that's where the name came from. And then just kind of wanting to in my head, I saw this vision of, naked Broadway being not just me, but, other performers that could be showcased. And so I was like, let me do a virtual show. I put out this casting call, and at first it wasn't like I wasn't specifically gonna cast BIPOC performers,
Mm,
but the castings, like the people who submitted, were just, it was overwhelmingly white. And I was like, I don't really want to create a reflection of what's already on Broadway.
yeah.
I would rather kind of have this little safe um, haven where it's just BIPOC performers. And so I had disappointed a lot of people, I'm sure, when I was like, actually, actually,
Yeah.
we're just gonna go in a different direction with this. And from there, wrote the mission, wrote the values, and kind of really just committed to keeping this as a BIPOC space.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. It's so lovely. If anybody has a chance to, I'm pretty sure all of the episodes are on demand currently, right?
Yes, we have two
Yeah.
episodes, The Fool and The Magician, and they can both be found on my Shopify.
Yes. So definitely check those out because you can watch them anytime. And the
Yes.
next one that's coming out very shortly, April 1st, only a couple weeks, is going to be virtual and in person, right?
Well, we're not streaming it because
Ah,
I don't want to do that.
gotcha.
I think I do, but that's something to experiment with another time as a live stream. I know people have done it successfully, but I always say under promise, over deliver.
Hmm.
So it will be available to stream after the show.
Awesome. So even
Yeah.
if you can't make it in person, you can watch it at home in your PJs with your wine or your water and a little
Yes.
snack. That's so cool. And how's it been preparing for your first in-person Naked Broadway show?
I have more help now, which is Coco Gateau joined the team.
Yeah, Coco.
Yes, and she joined to do specifically social media for the last show, and she kind of found that she really enjoyed the kind of outreach aspect more. She wanted to reach out to sponsors and
Mm,
get the word out in a different way. And so we've been doing less social media, and also uh social media is just it's not quite as important down here as it was up north.
yeah.
I don't know how to People are not as into Instagram down here as they are. They're more into like that person to person interaction. um so it's been very different. It's definitely been a learning experience. Yeah, I'm excited. That's all I can really say is like I'm just really excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on branching out, going back in person, getting on a stage. That's going to be so awesome. And I can't wait to watch the replay because I will be there. Haven't missed an episode yet.
Yes, the High Priestess XXX.
Yes, High Priestess XXX. I love it. Yes. So make sure if you're watching or listening to this that you either go support in person or you catch it on the replay again in your cozy pajamas or whatever you want to wear. You also, I mean, so you're a burlesque artist, you're a singer, you're an instrumentalist, you're recording albums, you're writing everything. And you also host some really fantastic workshops.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, the Playfectionist workshop I've taken. I've actually taken it with my husband, and still to
Yeah.
this day, when we're like in a funk or whatever, we'll sing the little song you taught us.
Oh.
I am worthy, I am whole,
Oh.
and we'll just kind of sing it to each other, and then we're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Oh my God, I'm like tearing up. Stop.
Ah, it's true. I don't remember the one I wrote for myself, but I remember the one that you sang to us because it was so good. And I mean, I was definitely crying in that workshop. Like, I was glad it
Mm.
was recorded so I could just like pause it and then just be like, oh,
Yeah.
ugly cry for a bit and then go back. How did you come up with the Playfectionist workshop series?
So I wanted to do two things. One was musical improv.
Mhm.
I wanted to get people together to like make up songs on the spot, because I just feel like that is a way that I fight perfectionism. I think I don't know if it's because of, my generation grew up on these singing competition shows or if it was already like that, but I feel like there's this spirit of competition around just the act of singing that is
Yeah.
completely unnecessary. And I know that a lot of us, when we're younger, if we start to sing, it's like we're criticized, or people project all this like, you'll never do this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just because a kid sings in a choir doesn't necessarily mean they want to be like Beyonce, like they can just
Yeah.
enjoy singing for the sake of singing. But
Yeah.
um there's definitely this culture of like hierarchy of the, who does the best, you know tricks essentially, and who sounds the
Yeah.
best and who can do that song the best. um and I wanted to challenge that, because I think as somebody who I consider myself a professional musician, I can't really go into gigs with that mentality of having to be perfect. That's not my, the Virgos can keep that for themselves. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want it. It really messes with my head. Um,
Mm.
I need to ground myself in the fact that like music is a language, and it's a language of connection. And I wanted to just be in that space with other people where we're making up silly songs. And then I also wanted to teach people to write affirmations, because they're very helpful for me. Again, as somebody with a lot of anxiety and depression, affirmations have just been like a daily routine that help me start my day an intention.
Mm.
And I remember being in, again, our mentoring group and being in this small group with, I was Mona and Joy. And they were both just kind of like, well, why don't you put those ideas together and do that as a workshop? And I was like, oh, you know? And so that's where the happy song time uh, affirmation workshop came from, where we were learning an affirmation song as an example,
Mm.
and, you know, then writing our own. And I would just teach people how to write their own affirmation song. I'm thinking of including that affirmation song in the EP. I wasn't going to do it, but
Mm.
I'm now kind of like, actually, I think we need it. I think I would like to include it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. And it just resonates. It really does help like apply a balm when you're in that like anxious, depressed headspace. Yeah, it really helps like bring you back to center. So
Yeah.
I definitely appreciate that contribution to the world and definitely encourage you to share it with other people. Yeah, I'd love to see that on the EP. Little Nivi working
So
out here.
small. 5 feet tall me.
Booping people on the noses and stuff. How was the process of creating your first single and first music video?
I'll go back to the why. And for me, when I revisited songs that I had written in the past, when I revisited these during lockdown, Icarus was one that I think I had committed the most time to, and then just kind of left it alone. And, I'm living, surviving and trying to do more stage stuff. And with thinking about what kind of legacy do I want to leave, for me, recordings are very important, because in person is very powerful, but it is also just a moment. And I find something very powerful about like connecting with an artist and then going and looking them up on Spotify and being like, oh
Yeah.
my God, look at this thing that I've never heard of. Let me go. I literally just did that the other day. Karen Olivo is this Broadway, I consider, legend.
Mm.
They were the Vanessa, and then they were the original Satine in the revival of Moulin Rouge.
Wow.
And I read this article by them, the topic article, where they were talking about why they decided to leave Broadway because of just poor treatment of actors. Um,
Mm.
And they also have an EP out on Spotify that I was listening to the other day, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I found this. My
Yeah.
camera's still going off. But basically, I felt a need to do, something like that, where I would leave behind a recording that was straight from my heart, that didn't have um, kind of other influences projected onto it,
Mm.
And I wrote this song with just 4 chords. Actually, it was three. It was 3 chords.
Wow.
Um, Playing that over and over again. This was like back in 2017. Um, I was coming an acid trip, and just and just like was going in all these different directions, and I just started singing. That's why it doesn't rhyme. It doesn't rhyme
Ah,
at all.
yeah.
Nobody notices until I tell them. I took that recording, just kept rewriting it, and just kept
Mm.
trimming and refining it. And I got the GarageBand app on my phone at school, so I would take the PATH train from Jersey City into New York, uh, and just like edit it on the to school. I committed so much time to it, and then I just go. And then during lockdown, I came back and was like, this is gonna be the single because I've put the most energy into it already, and because it still feels like a very important message. That's like, why are you so worried about what you're this is so interesting because I keep talking about the legacy, but this
Mm.
song is about why it's not really that important to think about leaving a legacy.
Yeah.
And just like literally a character speaking to a muse, like, why do you keep building all these dreams up in my head? And the muse is literally like, la 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 la. So that's the song. That's Icarus. And then I was like, if it's my first single, I'm also gonna want to do a video. My friend gave me this, who's an indie rapper, gave me the idea
Mm.
to do a video, and they were like, yeah, you really just like you can film in 3 different locations, do 3 different like shoots, and then cut that together and you have a video. And so I was like, okay, the 3 locations will all be my living room.
Yeah.
I have like a piece of fabric that you see this curtain behind me. I literally just take binder clips. This was a trick
Yeah.
that Kita St. Cyr taught me in one of her virtual production workshops. Binder clips, put them on the rod, put the fabric in there, and you have a green screen, and I have a ring light. And so um it was that, and I had this idea of like a story of kind of Wizard of Oz, Alice in Wonderland, like somebody going
Yeah.
into a completely different world, and Space Jam, where you have like a
Yeah.
live action person, like all these animations. And I found backgrounds from various like image and illustration
Yeah.
sites that are like royalty free, and I found some really beautiful illustrations like
Mm.
forests and caves and little animals, and I was like, this is what I want. I want like whimsy. I want like this. And so the story really filmed it in like one afternoon.
Wow. Filmed in one
Yeah,
afternoon in the living room with those
with a
cartoon
little ring
animals.
light, green
Yeah.
screen, and I a lot of pressure, newer artist, to if it's your first one, it has to be big because
Mm.
you never know who's gonna see it. And I'm like, I'd rather create 1,000 silly, low quality things that have a lot of imagination in them than something that high quality, like oh, was it in a studio? Like, who produced this? It was me, bitch. It was
Yeah.
me. Yeah, a lot of
It's
fun.
me, I did everything. Yeah.
That's the trend, is literally just like, does it need to be done? I guess I have to learn it because I am an introvert.
Yeah.
Not gonna ask people for help. Sorry.
Yeah, same here. Asking for help is like, it's a
Yeah.
it's a struggle, but we learn every day.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I loved that you debuted that music video during one of the Naked Broadway episodes too, so we got to see it
Yes.
first. And you shared your progress on your stories too on Instagram, so you could see like what do you guys like more? Do you like this cave painting or this, red animal, or this is how the
Right.
green scene's going? And it was just so interesting and very inspiring for me too.
I'm
My
glad.
dog has decided it's time to leave, so I'll let her out
Yeah.
in 1 second. Um, but yeah, it was very inspiring to watch you kind of go through the process on your stories too, and just be like, oh yeah, I can get one piece of green screen fabric and make a whole new world for people. That's incredible. So thank you for sharing all of that. It's because of you that I was able to even like think of that as an option for the
Oh,
future. So
awesome.
yeah, thank you for sharing everything with us. I've got two more questions for you as we wind down on time here. Uh, what do you wish you knew when you started your burlesque journey?
Hmm. There are no limitations. And that I don't mean again, I don't mean the hierarchical sense of like you can be the best. You can be the I'm gonna say Beyonce again. You can be the of burlesque. That's not what I mean necessarily. I don't mean like there are no limitations, so try to be the best. I mean limitation like this sounds very cliche, but like you have to be the best you. Like the more you can integrate your passions past, the more excited you're going to get and the more of a unique performance you're going to create. So you don't have to compete with other people ever because only offer a lot of people in strips, musical theater singing strips. Nobody's going to do them exactly the way. And
Yep.
that's because of the inner work that I've done of like overcoming perfection and overcoming that need to and also expose yourself to as much as possible. I know like you don't have the New York Burlesque Festival, down the street or a train ride away or something, but there YouTube has a live of burlesque performances, and some performers have websites that link specifically to like you know their YouTube channels.
Yeah.
And so let yourself fall down that rabbit hole of just following what calls you, and you're going to be inspired by these styles. And then you can talk about how the main attraction who's like all inspired you and all. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. That's a really great piece of advice that we don't hear enough, and especially to add the lens of like, but it doesn't have to be in a competitive way.
Yeah.
That was very important for me to hear.
Yeah.
So I know it'll help other people too. And last question. What projects are you excited for or would like to share that are going to be coming up in the future for you?
Well, we talked about Naked Broadway.
Yeah.
April 1st, 2023. It's gonna be here in New Orleans. That's a big one. It's in a couple weeks. At some point after that, I'll be pre-sales for my Miss Bird, which is kind of loosely based around growing queer and with anxiety and depression in a city that is known for its kind of changing immigrant population. So there's that,
Mm.
and my EP, which is release date TBD, but I hope to release another single this year. I think it'll be the song about my cousin, because
Mhm.
that's the one that's been speaking to me the most. Yeah.
Very awesome. Awesome. So, everyone, if you liked Nivi and want to follow her adventures, because there are many, as you've seen today, make sure you check out Nivi on TikTok and Instagram at Nivi Canela. And of course, I will put all these links down in the comments and the show notes for this episode as well. Also, make sure you check out Naked Broadway on Instagram and take a peek at all Nivi's got going on our website at nivicanela.com. That's Nivica, N as in Nancy, ELA.com. Thank you so much for joining me today, Nivi, and being the first inaugural interviewee. It's been my absolute pleasure to learn more about you and speak with you today. And you're just such a rock star.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Thank you for
much.
having me, rock star.
We'll be rock stars together. Yeah. All right. And that's it for the pod. We're going to stay on and debrief afterwards. But thanks for watching and listening, everybody.